Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Keith. I made this channel to help men create their ideal lives through self-mastery. Before we get started on today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the channel because I'm putting out new videos every single day to help guys just like you create their ideal lives. So let's get into today's topic. The topic of today's video is 5 main lessons I learned from Tim Ferriss. For those of you who don't know, Tim Ferriss is an author, he's an angel investor, he's founded multiple businesses. He's a major thinker. He talks a lot about stoicism, practicality. He helps advise a lot of businesses as well. And a lot of the lessons he gives are not only applicable for running a business, but they're also applicable for your life. And I wanted to share a lot of these things with you because a lot of these have been very helpful. After doing the video I did on the books that have influenced me, I realized that it wasn't necessarily books that had been the biggest influence, rather just people in general and learning about people. So I decided I'm going to do a series on different people who I've taken a lot of lessons from, and I'm going to share those rather than getting into specifics about books. I'm going to get into specifics about people, and Tim Ferriss is the first one. First thing I had down was to develop a compelling incentive that will create discipline. Tim Ferriss has said he's not a big fan of discipline, and the reason being is he just feels like it will fail you really quickly without motivation. Some people disagree on this, like Jocko Willink, if you know him, he's a Navy SEAL or a former Navy SEAL. He's a big proponent of discipline, but Tim Ferriss would suggest that discipline's great, but that without the proper incentive, discipline will go to the wayside, and oftentimes he's true. He's correct on this, and you know this from your own life. If you look back on something that you needed to do, but you just didn't do it, and the reason is the why was not strong enough. So having a compelling incentive, for me, I can give a good example of this. For those of you who don't know, my primary source of income is I make sales calls for real estate, and I close deals over the phone and things like that. And so I'm talking on the phone with people who don't want to, they don't want to work with me. They want to hang up on me immediately, and I have to go through these combative situations a lot of times and convince people to give me money, basically. And one thing I realized is I was avoiding the issue and I wasn't being very disciplined until I gave myself a compelling incentive. And the compelling incentive was I started typing in on the calculator. I would track how much money I was going to make if I closed a call. So I would type in the money. It's like, if I just make this one call, I can make $1,500. And if I make this next call, I make $800, or this next one, it's $2,500, and just adding this up. And so every time I'd get on a call, I'd be like, is this call worth $1,000 to me? And I'd be like, yes, like, you could be the biggest asshole in the world, I'm still going to call you for my $1,000, you know? So doing that gave me the proper incentive to keep going, because it could be very difficult for me to discipline myself and make these calls that I need to make. So that was a really good example of that, and a lot of people suffer with this in fitness. Give yourself a compelling incentive in fitness. Plan a beach trip and want to look your best for it. Maybe that's a good incentive, or maybe just a friend busting your balls is enough to be a strong incentive. But creating incentives for yourself to do what you know you need to do is key. Second thing I had down, lower your standards. This is an interesting one. The reason for this, it's not saying to just give up on your dreams. It's saying to lower the bar to the point where you will take action. So Tim uses the example of authors, and authors are often getting writer's block. And so he has a philosophy of just give me 2 bad pages written per day. And it just sets a really low threshold. That means that it's very easy to cross, which causes you to not get overwhelmed by the goal in mind. So if you drop the goal down low to something you feel like is very attainable, you knock it out, you're more likely to actually do better than if you had a really high goal that kind of crushed your desire and your motivation to pursue it. Third thing I had down, keep things as simple as possible. Tim Ferriss is the productivity master. One of the great ways to do this is to batch your content. This is something I'm probably going to start doing with YouTube because my schedule's gotten a lot more busy, which is why I haven't been able to put out videos a couple times this past couple weeks. Batching your content is about doing as many of the most routine things that you do, doing them all at once rather than on a daily basis. So if you have to send out like 100 emails, get them done at once rather than dispersing them. Or a lot of people do this on social media, on Instagram. A lot of people will have their content batched, like for the month. They'll get it all done in like a day or two, have their content plan ready, and then they just upload from there. And it takes way less time than if every single day you have to find time to do this thing. And it really is a huge time saver. So if you can look at things in your life and figure out, how can I batch this? How can I put as much mundane stuff together at one time to clear up the rest of my schedule? It can be a huge benefit to you. But this isn't the only place that this comes in handy. Simplicity can come down to just things you're doing. A lot of times we overcomplicate decisions, whether it's buying a new car or buying a new house. Obviously you don't want to take these things lightly, but a lot of people will overcomplicate them, and they'll end up with analysis paralysis a lot of times. Keep things simple, focus on what works. You know, I had to do this with my business model too. I had to refine it and get a lot of the clutter out of the way and figure out what's the system that's actually working to get me the results I want to get. And once you do that, it makes your life a lot easier, and you'll find that most of the clutter wasn't worth the time anyways. Fourth thing I had down, this was key for me to learn, and this is a really important one for you guys to know. It's called state story strategy. Tim said he got this from Tony Robbins. So essentially it works like a flow. So you start with your state, and your state leads into your story, and your story leads into your strategy. And what this means is that the state that you're feeling internally, your emotional state, is going to dictate the story you're telling yourself about the world around you in a situation. And that story is then going to lead to you creating a strategy and a result. So let's think of a good example. If you wake up in the morning and you're in a funk and you're not feeling good, and maybe you've got a girlfriend, and your girlfriend hasn't texted you back in a while, and because you're in a negative mind state, the story you're telling yourself is one of jealousy or something like that. So now you're telling yourself this story, and because you're seeing the world through this lens, because you had a negative state about you, you're now strategizing based on this negative reality, and you'll start to do some needy and erratic, stupid things. Maybe you're in a negative state and you're about to go to work, and you got to call some people and try and get some money. Well, now the story you're telling yourself is that these people aren't going to want to work with me. They're going to try and resist everything I say, and this is going to be really difficult. And your strategy is going to cause you to have a strategy on the phone of being more combative, less assertive, less able to get the things done, because you're going to be coming from the place of assuming things are going to go bad. So what he would suggest, what Tim would suggest, what Tony would suggest, is that you need to get your state up before you start telling yourself a story about something and then strategizing on it. I've had to do this. Once I started implementing this, I got huge changes, because you'll be so caught up in the way you're feeling that you won't realize that your entire strategy you're making and evaluation of a situation is driven by how you're feeling inside, until you change your internal state and realize that you've changed the entire way you're seeing the situation because of that. This is a really big one. I mean, like, this is seriously huge, to start becoming aware of the story you're telling yourself in your head, and then seeing, how am I feeling inside? Do some things to change the way you're feeling. Things like meditation, bioenergetics, just jumping around, running around, exercising in the morning is a great one, just to get the energy up in your body and not be feeling down and negative. The fifth one I've got, the Pareto principle. Sorry guys, I got interrupted. All right, back to the topic at hand. The fifth thing, the Pareto principle. Pareto principle is a study that was done. It was, well, I don't know if it was more of just an observation that has been now studied over and over again and been just proven to be scientifically accurate. And that is that around 80% of your success is going to come from 20% of your actions taken, and about 80% of the things that you're not happy about in your life are coming from 20% of the situations. And oftentimes it's even more skewed. It could be like 90-10, 95-5. It's essentially, the point is that your success is skewed to a few small things. This is why the rich continue to get rich and the poor continue to get poor, because the amount of wealth does not disperse evenly. It disperses at an uneven scale. So how does this work in your own life? Start looking at the things that aren't serving you very effectively and start cutting the fat off. Tim used the example of he was running a business one time right out of college, and he discovered that about 90% of his headaches were coming from about 10% of his customers. And those 10% of his customers, they weren't even his biggest clients either. So what he did was he just cut the accounts with these people. He took the quick hit initially, but he had so much more time, so much less stress on his plate. And what happened was his business ended up like tripling in 30 days because he had this incredible amount of time and positive energy now in his life to focus on getting more ideal clients rather than keeping up with people that weren't exactly great for his business. This is why a lot of people talk about niching down if you're running a business, getting really specific on who your ideal client is, because you want to find more of them rather than trying to please everybody. But this works in every part of your life. If 80% of the headaches in your life are coming from 20% of your friend group, then cut that 20% out. If 80% of your distractions are coming from 20% of the things in your life, cut them out. So like maybe the 20% is your phone. Maybe you should put the phone on airplane mode more time. You'll have more time to focus. If 80% of the fights with your girlfriend are happening about 20% of the situations, just start to this applies to everything in your life. Start looking at the things that are causing you the most trouble and see if they're non-essential. If they're non-essential, start cutting them out and reducing the amount of negatives in your life, because the overwhelming majority of the things that go wrong in your life and the overwhelming majority of the things that go well in your life are based on just a few things. If you go look at my videos on YouTube, for example, I'd be willing to bet that by topic, I haven't actually looked deep at this, I'm probably gonna do this right after the video, I guarantee you that if I looked at the topics, the topic of semen retention, which I've done 4 or 5 videos on now, I bet has 90% of my viewership, 80% at least, and it's definitely got my highest viewed videos. And so, I mean, you can make the case based off that if my top priority was just getting more views, that I should focus more on semen retention and cut out other kinds of videos, but I don't want to be a completely semen retention based channel, so I'm not going to do that. But that's a good example, and you could go look at my videos and you'll realize that about 80% of my views are coming from 20% of my videos. And this dispersion works for everything pretty much. That's why people will blow up overnight on one hit song, or one movie will make a career out of somebody, but it's only just a little piece of their work. But guys, that's all I got for this video. I'm going to start doing this series, like I said, on guys that I think are really influential, guys and girls. There are some girls as well in here that I think can give you some great value and some very practical ways you can change your life from the better. If you guys are interested in men's self-development, you want to be better versions of yourself, including building a better body, join me inside my free Facebook group. Inside there, I'm putting out workout and nutrition plans. Most people are paying hundreds of dollars for this. I want to give it to you guys for free. Click the link in the description box below and join us inside Training Camp, my free Facebook group. Thanks guys for watching. I'll see you on tomorrow's video.